Well, this is the last Sunday of the Easter season. On Thursday, 40 days after Easter Day, we celebrate the ascension of Jesus into heaven. If the disciples thought his resurrection meant a return to normal, back to following him, hearing his teaching, and admiring his miracles, the ascension proved them wrong once and for all. He was gone. They were to wait for a new normal, the life of Jesus coming into their hearts and minds by the power of the Holy Spirit. From now on, the life of Jesus was not just in one place at one time, but anywhere and always. As the coronavirus has gone on, and now as restrictions begin to be lifted, many people are asking, what next? Do we aim to go back to the old ways, or is there to be a new normal? Something fresh and good that God can bring out of this disaster. Perhaps we feel a bit like the statesmen in the Allied countries as VE Day passed and VJ Day approached. What do we want the world to be like now? We have a chance to rebuild, but how and what? Or to put it another way, why has God allowed this, and what is he asking us to learn from it? Now, I don't claim any prophetic gift, but I'm going to offer you some reflections to help you as you ponder these questions. It would be great to receive your comments, so please do let us have them on the WhatsApp group or by email. So first of all, to think about the world, our planet. I think we have now learnt, if we didn't know before, that the power of nature is immense. Whether this virus came from a lab or from a market or somewhere else, we now know that the natural world can devastate our societies and our economies. Not just locally, as we were perhaps used to with tsunamis, earthquakes and volcanoes, but globally now. And some are saying that this is a warning of something far worse. Failing to drastically reduce carbon emissions will lead us into a situation of catastrophic global warming, which one recent study has suggested will render a vast part of the world's surface uninhabitable for human beings. In other words, if you thought the coronavirus was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. So after the restrictions are lifted, we need, as a world community, to relearn the old message that when we say we're going to throw something away, there is no such place as away. It just goes somewhere else. It's someone else's problem. We need to recognise that there are people who will be worse affected than others, and to work together to look after them. We are one community on this planet. Turning to our own nation, we have seen a huge increase in the role of the state in organising lockdown, creating new hospitals, helping workers and businesses, and providing care for the poorest. Who would have thought that when Boris and his Tory government were elected on a landslide, less than 6 months later, several of Labour Party policies would actually be put into place, raising the level of benefit in universal credit, giving food vouchers to families who normally receive free school meals, and housing all the rough sleepers. This has happened, and it's been quite astonishing to see. The state has actually done a vast amount of good recently. So after coronavirus is over, I hope that will continue. I hope that the care for the poorest and neediest will not once again be left to charity or chance. And now in the church we have learnt to worship on our own, to be part of the church and yet individual. We share resources on the internet, some of us, others just with a prayer card and printed Bible readings. Increasingly, church ministers are using means of communication that perhaps we'd shunned or feared for a long time. WhatsApp, Zoom, all these things like you're watching today, YouTube. Some churches are live streaming their services. Once we can worship together again, we need to work out what God is calling us to do with this new skill. We need perhaps to think about making the internet a permanent part of our worship life. First of all, for those who can't worship on a Sunday and need to access things on other days because of work or family patterns, and also because there are people perhaps on the fringe of church life who are interested, who don't come to our Sunday services but are connected with the church through pastoral offices, or perhaps just because they happen to attend a group that meets in our church hall. We need to make the good news of Jesus available to people whose main means of communication is the internet. And then thinking about ourselves. In our own lives, we've learnt humility, I think. So much has had to be crossed out of our diaries, hasn't it? From now on, we will think twice, I think, before boldly asserting what our plans are. Our freedoms have been curtailed. Our families have been separated. But we've learnt also to appreciate simplicity, birdsong, parks and gardens, slowing down of life, silence and stillness, acts of kindness shown to us and to others. In summary, I think what we have found through this coronavirus situation is rather a paradox, and it's this: we've got a greater sense of community now since we've been enforced isolation. Or in biblical language, we've learnt that to love ourselves, we must love our neighbour. After isolation ends, we will have the chance to build a new normal that embraces this paradox. A chance to cement our sense of community with the planet, with the poorest, and with all God's people, whether or not they come to a church on a Sunday. By recentering our lives around the values of simplicity and humility, we can ensure that these lessons are not forgotten. Well, what do you think? Let's start that conversation. God bless you.